Wow, that is awesome. What a great moment to remember what a powerful name he is. This band behind us just leading us to the throne of the Lord. That is awesome. We're going to be looking at James chapter 3. It says this. Oh, it was a good song. It says this. James chapter 3:1 says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man, able to also bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouth of horses so that they will obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. The tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who were made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth comes blessings and cursings. My brothers, these things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can the salt pond yield fresh water." Would you pray with me as we begin? God, thank you for this time. Friends that are here as we gather around your word. Thank you for this passage that has been rocking me over the last few weeks, pointing at my heart and things that I need to work out. I pray all of us are able to walk out with understanding again who you are and our true desire to be like you, God. Stir our hearts, we pray, and may you guard our words today. Thank you for this time. Amen. Amen. You may have a seat. Well, my family and I moved down here, if you remember, a few years ago, about 2 years ago. We moved into a little 1,000-square-foot house in Long Beach, made in the old 1950s. And it sure makes small bedrooms. And not just that, but back in the day, the closet spaces were tiny. And in our house is no exception. It's a small room, and it's our bedroom. And in the bedroom, our closet is even smaller. And it's even worse when you're married and you have two people living in such a small space. The closet's about this big, right? And I get about this much of it. And my wife has a little bit more. And even that's not too bad because, she's very, very good at being careful with what she spends money on. She stays in a budget. She is awesome with that. And just buying clothes that, she really loves, and she doesn't go crazy on that. And I'm very thankful for that because I am frugal. And also, we just don't have a lot of space. In fact, it's interesting because my hangers are slowly disappearing, and I don't know where they go, but my wife keeps getting more on her side of the closet. And when I see her clothes laying on the floor, because I'm such a nice guy, I'll hang them up sometimes. With mine, they go on very easy. With hers, it's interesting. I go to find a spot, and every fiber in my being to just open that thing up just to get that thing in, and it's so hard, and I force it in there, right? I kick that dress in, and it's kind of all in there, very wrinkled, but it's in, right? And then she comes back, and she's like, "Well, you didn't color code that thing." I'm like, "I can't do it. It's too hard." You put those things away. Well, the other day I was, again, been studying this passage for quite a while now, working on getting control of my tongue and thinking about the things that I say and being careful. I'm with some buddies of mine, some pastors. We were kind of talking about life. I get a phone call from my wife. Her mom was in town, and she's been having just a great time with her mom. They've been going out to different stores. They've been just kind of looking, and they've been getting some good food, some good lunch. And she's like, and Rich, she just had so much joy. As she said these words, she's like, my mom was so sweet. She bought me a few sweaters. And the first thing out of my mouth, without even skipping a beat, was this: well, where are you going to put them all? Right? And I so wish I could have taken it back, because it was an awkward kind of pause, and she says this: well, that wasn't so nice, was it? And I was like, it was not nice at all, honey. I'm so sorry. Honestly, I don't know. I'm so sorry. And she's like, well, it must have come from something. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it. My bad. I'll buy you a new sweater, right? I was thinking on that for a little bit, and with my messages as I put this together, I run it by some different guys and gals at the church and just getting some thoughts. And I was talking to Pastor Trent, one of our pastors here, about this idea, and he's like, oh man, it's a bummer you said that. I was like, yeah, I know. And he's like, it's even kind of more of a bummer because she was so joyful, and you missed an opportunity to really step into that time of joy that your wife was feeling. She was feeling that. You just missed that opportunity. And I was like, hey, Captain Conviction, I get it. I messed up, all right? I get it. Get out of my office, right? Take that conviction with you. I think about it, and it's so absolutely true. Not only did my words just pierce the heart of my wife and just make her think, well, that wasn't very nice, and knowing full well, you're right, it wasn't nice. What was I thinking? Man, my girl had this joy that she couldn't wait to call me, probably called me first. Let me tell you about such an awesome time I just had with my mom. She bought me these things. Oh, yeah, where are you going to put those things, all right? Who says that? Enjoy this time that she's opening up. She has this joy, and I was so quick to respond and so slow to actually listening. As we're going to unpack this passage in James chapter 3, it's going to be dealing with our hearts, yes, and the things that are coming out of our mouth. What we have to understand as we first get into James, though, those that may be new to our series, we've been talking about the book of James for about a month and a half. But those that were actually hearing this letter read to them here back in the day, they didn't take a month and a half to read a little section, then wait for a week, a little section, then wait for a week. They're reading this letter, and they're hearing these things said. And so all of a sudden, James chapter 1 that took us a month ago, they would have heard just moments ago, and they're starting to piece together, whoa, what was said then, just moments ago, he's making the point even now. So we're in chapter 3, but things that were said in chapter 1 are so critical for us to understand chapter 3. Pastor Brent, a month ago, talked about this idea of coming together and looking at ourselves in a mirror. In having the Lord convict us of certain things as we're looking in the mirror, and how foolish it would be to walk away, be convicted, and not change anything. And he's saying, he gave us this challenge of being hearers of the word, yes, but we must be doers as well as we walk away, looking in a mirror and being convicted and doing something with it. Pastor Nick last week, if you were here, talked about this idea of saving faith, a faith of knowing who God is, understanding who he is and what he has done, believing those things about him to be true, then our life should look a little different. We should be looking in the mirror and wanting to grow in our relationship with God, not just knowing things about God, but believing those things should stir us to action. And now James is going to continue pressing this matter of spiritual maturity and the things that, in this section, the things that we say. And we see it right here in James chapter 3:1 says this: not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to bridle his whole body. James is going to be making this point. Be very careful with what you say. Words have power, and those that are teaching it, your heart better be in the right spot. People of his day were maybe getting up to preach for whatever reason they want, and James is saying, be very careful. But this isn't just about teachers, because it simply says right after, all of us stumble. And we need to be very careful as he is giving again this constant little thread of connecting dots between spiritual maturity and the things that we say. Being very careful with our words. Why? Because words are powerful, and he's going to go into some detail of painting this word illustration, giving us some word illustrations, word pictures illustrating what he's trying to really get at. And he says it here in verse 3. He says this: if we put bits into the mouth of a horse so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies. Into the mouth of words, they obey us, and we guide their whole bodies. And in 4 it says, look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. You've got this metal bit that goes in the horse's mouth. It sits on top of the tongue. It's attached to the bridle, that's attached to the reins, and the person on the horse just gives a little tug to the right of that little rein, and then it hits the bit in the horse's mouth and either presses down on the horse's tongue or it kind of pulls back on the mouth, and it's going to guide him one way or the other by just a small, simple tug. Some bits don't just sit on the top of the mouth, it actually squeezes the tongue of the horse. Sounds awful. But the point is very simple. Small things can have a major impact. Boats, he's going to go on to say, boats, large boats, carrying a lot of people, have a rudder on the back. And no matter how big that boat is, that rudder can be very, very tiny in comparison. But wherever that rudder steers, that big ship is going to go. Another word picture that he's just trying to make the simple point. Small things have a major impact. And right after that, he goes right into saying the tongue, though small, boasts of great things. What's it saying? This thing, like a bit, like a rudder, it's tiny, yet it can have a major impact. So be very careful. Then he's going to unpack it a little bit more. And it's not fun. Let me warn us about that. The way he's going to go on to describe the tongue is kind of a downer. It says this through 6 and on. It says this. It says, the tongue is a world of unrighteousness. It's not a small thing. It's a world of unrighteousness, a world of wickedness right here. A stain that stains the whole body. That's a bold thing to say. I've had outfits that I'm wearing, I walk out, I feel very confident in. Unaware of a stain, and somebody says, hey, is that a stain on your shirt? And I'm like, oh, so it is. I need to put a tie on, even though I don't have a tie, and try to cover it. And now I have conversations with people, and all I think is they're doing it is staring at that stain, and it ruins my whole outfit. He's saying the tongue stains the whole body. It's a restless evil is what James calls it. A restless evil? The tongue never stops. It's restless. It's ready to go, always trying to attack. It's the thing I use most to hurt people. Man, do I think of it that way? Really? A restless evil? I was talking to another pastor, and we were talking about it, and he says this. He's like, man, I heard a quote once about the tongue is the only tool that gets sharper with use. It's the only tool that gets sharper. Most tools will dull out, but not the tongue. The more I use it, the sharper it gets. And it's interesting because I find myself getting sharper with the people I love most. I know how to hurt my wife with my words. It is a restless evil. Weapon I use most. James says that the tongue is full of deadly poison. That's crazy. Deadly poison. Poison kills. These are some pretty strong things to say. Your tongue, your words, the things that are coming out of your mouth is deadly poison. I mean, me and Pastor Brent were talking about this idea of sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but names will never hurt me. We were talking, and he said this. He's like, who said that? Right? Because who had that phrase that names will never hurt? Maybe we're not quite like each other, but names hurt me. Words hurt. I've got that armor that I put on that I think arrows do kind of fall off sometimes, but man, when there's like, an arrow gets in and I feel like there's a lot that start to get in. Words are powerful. Words hurt. It's a restless evil and a deadly poison. I was really wrestling with this because I'm reading this stuff and I'm convicted. Again, you know what I said to my wife just last week. And I'm reading this stuff and I'm studying and I'm like, do I really think about my tongue that way? Do I think of my tongue as a world of unrighteousness that stains the whole body, that it's a restless evil full of deadly poison? Do I really think of it that way? Kind of convicted me, and maybe you're with me. It's like, well, I don't really think of my words that much at all. And friends, that's where it kind of hit me. I wonder if that's the point. I don't think about my words at all. When's the last time you thought about the impact that your words might be having on someone? It seems King David, he knew the impact that his words had. Either he was affected by it or his words affected other people, and he understood the weight of his words. And I believe that's when he wrote this Psalm 141, verse 3 says this, "Set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips." God, may you set a guard over my mouth and a door. May you be the protector, the door to my lips. When's the last time you asked God to put a guard over your mouth? Have we become so blind to the power of the tongue? Or worse, do we think we have it under control? It's an interesting one of control. It plays into an idea that I had, and all of a sudden I look at Scripture, I'm like, whoa, the similarities there is nuts, and it's this. I look at verse 6, one that I left out on purpose because this to me rocks me, and it says this about the tongue. The tongue is a fire. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. I lived in the mountains for 14 years, worked at a camp. And this camp was set in the middle of the Sequoia National Forest. We were surrounded all around us, woods, trees. Nearest city was Fresno, an hour and a half away. Between us and Fresno is a lot of trees. A couple of things keep you awake at night when you're in the forest, kind of surrounded by trees and kind of off on your own. A couple of things keep you awake. One, scary movies about dark forests. That's one thing that keeps you up. Another thing, absolutely, is fire. And working up there for 14 years, overseeing the high school ministry, I would have 1,000 kids that would come up that I feel responsible for every week. And every time I maybe even get a whiff that there might be a fire somewhere, I get nervous of like, all right, how can we evacuate people at this time? We're good. Never really happened. We never even got anywhere close to a fire coming close to us until 2015. July 31st. Me and my bride, we decided to go out. Let's go on a date to Fresno, get some Chipotle. So we drive out. It's an hour and a half, so we were driving out. And we get up to a spot where we can actually see off in the distance. And off in the distance, there's smoke. Where smoke is, there is fire. And it's far away. It's off on the other side of the ridge. And between us and that is the Kings Canyon River. And fire's not going to jump that river. It's too hard to jump this big river. But it's out there. My heart starts to beat a little bit, and I was like, should we go make sure someone knows? And we were all kind of out a little bit. We were like, let's go down. We'll get to a spot where we have cell reception, and then we'll make the call. So we get down, and we're like, hey, do we know about the fire? They're like, yeah, there's a fire going on back there, but hey, they think they have it under control, and their hope is that it's going to burn away from us because there's a lot of forest back there, and sometimes fire is good for the environment, so hopefully it's going to go that way, but they're keeping a watch on it. All right, so it's kind of controlled. We're good. So we go down, get ourselves some burritos, and then watch a movie, go shopping, and not for sweaters, but go shopping, and then we head back up the mountain. We're going up the hill about 9 o'clock at night now. And we roll around this corner, and it was maybe because it was during the day, it was just a lot of smoke, but at night, man, you saw those flames, and it looked crazy. And I feel like it grew in just even a few hours, and I'm like, that thing doesn't look under control to me. We get back to camp, and the next week of camp is starting now. It's Sunday, and smoke is covering our entire camp. And the fire is starting to head this way, but we're still doing okay. Youth pastors would come up to me, hey, I know there's a lake around here, but we can't see it because of the smoke. Are we good? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we're good. I go by my bosses. I'm like, hey, we're good, right? And they're like, I think so. And I'm like, whoa, what? And then they go to the fire chief, hey, are we good? And he's like, well, I'm like, what's that well? Are we good or are we not good? He's like, well, it's starting to make its way down. It didn't go the other way. It's now coming toward us, but we've got the river. That's going to control it. It never jumps the river. We're good. I think we have this thing under control. Day after day, we're just always listening to our radios. Are we good? Has it jumped the river? Not yet. Good. Camp finally ends Saturday. Rolls out, and just a weight lifted off as campers all go down the hill. Still hadn't jumped the river, and they're hopefully convinced that it never will until it did. And we had to evacuate. And me and my family, along with our Hume family, we were evacuated for five weeks as this thing was burning. The rough fire was burning the forest uncontrollably all around Hume. And at the peak of the fire, September 15th, a month and a half later, the peak of the fire, the number of firefighters involved in the rough fire, 3,741 firefighters. 345 engines, 19 helicopters grabbing water out of the Hume Lake itself, trying to dump this water on the fire. 43 bulldozers. Fire finally got under control November 5th, over 3 months of this fire going out of control, out of control, out of control. They think they have it, and it jumps. Gets out of control. And to think about this little fire that started 3 months ago by one quick moment of a lightning striking a tree, one tree turned into that. One little piece of ground that one little helicopter dipping some water from the lake coming over and dumping on it could have taken care of the problem. Let's see if we can keep this thing under control. Do we think that we have our tongue under control? Because it says this, that our tongue is a world of unrighteousness, stains the whole body, a restless evil, a deadly poison, a fire, and how great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. Wow, James seems to really hate the tongue. But as you've been reading chapter 1 of James and chapter 2 and 3 and so on, and we will continue, it's not a tongue issue. It's a heart issue. Matthew 12 says this, out of the abundance of my heart, the mouth speaks. We're going to continue to look at that as we go on during this series, that it's a hard issue that we've got to work out, but it does affect our tongue. And in James's day, there's an issue going on with the tongue and the words coming out of our mouth, so we have to speak into that. But why does James seem to be so concerned about the words coming out of our mouth? Because it seems that God is very concerned about the things coming out of our mouth. Put your finger right there in James 3, because I think we all have to look at Proverbs. Proverbs 6, it says a very interesting thing. We've got to read it. I want you to see it, not just to hear it. So Proverbs, turn over to the Old Testament. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 16. Sorry, we're going to go to, verse 16. Proverbs 6, 16. Says this in 6:16 of Proverbs. There are 6 things the Lord hates. Read that again in case we might have missed it. There are 6 things that the Lord hates. 7, they're an abomination to him. All right, that's a pretty bold verse. Let's maybe take heart to see, what are these things that God hates? Haunt the eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run towards evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. 7 things that are abomination to God that he hates. 4 out of 7 of them deal with the things coming out of our mouth. Why does James seem so concerned with the words coming out of our mouth? Because it seems that God is concerned with the things coming out of our mouth. Perhaps we should be more concerned with the things coming out of our mouth, because words have power. And the small thing can have a major impact. It was true in James's day, and it's true in ours, because, friends, I've seen the devastation that words can have on friendships. I've seen the devastation and the hurt that I've caused people with my words. I've hurt my wife with my words, my kids with the things that I say. As this tongue seems to get sharper with use. I've seen the destruction that gossip does when it comes and enters into a friend group. I've seen it. I've seen the destruction, power of gossip as it enters a workplace. And unfortunately, I've seen the destructive power of gossip when it's brought into a church body. I've seen a camp staff that I worked with, that our eyes are supposed to be on the mission of pointing people to the Lord. And when complaining and nagging and gossip and griping seem to take our eyes off of our mission, I've seen it. I've seen the destruction of relationships crumble over words. The tongue is a restless evil. It is full of deadly poison. I get why James calls it that, don't you? But he continues in verse 9, which is hard to read. With this tongue, in James chapter 3, verse 9, with this tongue and this mouth, we bless our Lord and Father. Stop. That's what we're supposed to do, friends. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to come and we're supposed to understand who He is and understand what He has done for us, to sing these songs that we're doing. God, your name is above all names. What a powerful name that is. It has no rival, no equal. You are unbelievable. Who I am because of who you are and what you've done. I want to give you glory with this mouth and this tongue. And Psalm 35 says, my tongue shall tell of your righteousness and of your praise all day long. James is saying people would come together and give God glory and give Him praise. With this tongue, they bless the Lord and Father, and with it, they curse people who were made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth comes blessings and cursings. Whew, I'm glad that's not us. That's them. That doesn't happen at Arbor Road Church, does it? We're not a people that get out of our cars and come in here and sing these awesome songs to the Lord. Open up His Word and be convicted. And we're looking in a mirror and then we walk away not doing anything with it. And then we get outside as we've celebrated who God is as a community. We go outside and start cursing the same community we just worship the Lord with. That's not us, is it? I wonder if some of us don't even make it outside before the claws come out. Words are powerful. And they can be destructive. And friends, why are we, and I say we, it says be careful to teach these things. You'll be judged more. You don't think I'm convicted on that? And I'm so thankful that it says we all stumble because we're all in that same boat. But why are we a people that are so quick to make fun and to tear down? Why are we a people that are so quick to point out other people's faults? Why are we a people that lie or embellish the truth even just a little bit? Why are we a people that get excited to hear the simple words, did you hear? Why are we people that get excited to talk about the new rumor out there? To gripe and complain to people that can't even help fix the problem. Why? Because of sin. And we're drawn to it. And it's evil. And God hates it. And James calls us out. Look what it says here. In 10, for the same mouth comes blessings and cursings. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. And I love that language. It makes no sense a little, right? I want a t-shirt that says, these things ought not be so. Who speaks like that? But I love it because it makes me think, wait, what? And even that, I wonder if that's the point of it. These things can't be. James is going to go on to say, does a spring pour forth the same opening, both fresh water and salt water? No. No. What about a fig tree? Can a fig tree produce olives? Of course not. That's impossible. How? How indeed? How indeed can the same mouth come blessings to the Lord and then curses upon the people we just tried to bless God with? How indeed? May it ought not be so. James takes the tongue very seriously, friends. Maybe we should also. Where do you feel like you're struggling with your language, the things coming out of your mouth? Is it gossip? Think about that for a moment. Because right now we have a mirror being able to look at you, and I'm looking at it too. It's even worse, I feel like, because I've been studying this thing for 3 weeks. Every time I'm looking at this mirror and God's like, Art, are you going to do something with what you now know? and you've got a mirror, what are you going to do? Is you're taking a look at the mirror and allowing the Spirit to move in you right now. Where do we struggle? Is it with gossip? Maybe lying. Coarse joking, vulgar talk that might be coming out of your mouth, complaining. What is it? And now what are you going to do with it? Because I love what James said in James 1. Look at a mirror and don't just walk away. Look at it. And don't just be hearers of the word. Let's be doers of the word. One who doesn't bridle their tongue, their religion is worthless, is what it says in James 1. At the top of your chapter 3, the heading, like mine, I'm sure it says what? What's the heading say? Taming the tongue. That's what I grew up thinking about. And even me even teaching on this, I think that's what I thought that this was. I need to tame my tongue. And then I read verse 8. No human being can tame the tongue. Shoot, all right? What am I supposed to do? It says, every kind of beast and bird and reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no one can tame the tongue. So what is it? I'm supposed to bridle my tongue, or my religion is worthless, but I can't tame my tongue. So what is it? I was stuck with that. What are we doing here? I think that it's both. Friends, I think what we have to do is recognize that this thing is not tame. That this thing is a wild beast, and I cannot tame it. No human can tame this thing. I'm not called to tame it. I'm called to bridle it. And I put this thing over my mouth, a guard over my mouth, and a door on my lips. And I don't hold on to those reins. I give them to the Lord, because no human can tame the tongue. But He can. And He will. I'm going to look at that mirror and say, I need to do something with it. I need to ask for a guard over my mouth and a door over these lips. Is when I interact with people, He has the reins. I recognize who He is and what He's done for me. That should change me. So take the reins. And as we do, friends, I think we watch our King redeem our tongue. That we're then able to do what James 1 says, that we then are quick to listen and slow to speak. We become people that Ephesians 4 talks about, that we are building one another up, giving grace to all who will hear. As we are constantly doing what Psalm 35 says, that this tongue tells of His righteousness all day long. And when we come into any interaction with our words and the things that we're about to say, may we think on Psalm 19:14 that says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart. We see this heart and mouth connection again. May the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. Lord, my rock and my redeemer. He redeems the tongue. The tongue is a small thing. It makes a huge impact. Friends, let's use it for good. Let me pray for us. God, I'm challenged to even say thank you for these words, because this is a hard thing that it's hard for me to do. But I'm thankful for them because it makes me more like you, God, as I want my spiritual maturity. As I grow in that it guides my heart, my mouth, my hands, my feet, my eyes, my ears. God, may I grow in my love and knowledge for you. And I pause here to say, if there's some of you out here that don't have a relationship with God, I would love to take a moment to tell you how much you are loved. That in our sin, compromising His laws and our words, thoughts, our deeds, our attitudes, it separates us from a loving relationship with Him, but we're not stuck in that relationship, separated away from Him. He draws us to Him. We're not stuck, separated because of His saving grace. He redeems us by sending His Son to come and live a perfect life. And those that believe in Him and confess in Him and what He has done, you're children of God. And if you want to have a relationship with God and want to walk this life through with Him, it's not your life, it's His life. We'd love to talk to you more about that. But those of us sitting in this room and we agree with that we are free because of Him, then may our life show our love and desire for Him. May we look at a mirror and be hearers and doers with the things that He's convicting us with. God, thank you for this time. Thank you for your words. May we do something with it. It's in your name we pray. Amen.